Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. I'm here with Jason Sandberg. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing good, John. Happy new comic book day.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Today's Wednesday. That's right. I thought you were talking about my comic.
Not
Yeah.
not that there's a lot of stuff in the shops I that's new that I get. I typically get like old collections and like the occasional indie comic book, but I still try to get there every Wednesday to my LCS and poke
Oh, that's
around.
good. I moved, so I don't have my long term comic book store is long closed. Then my second,
Oh,
I think that's still open, but that moved, and I don't know where it is. I got to find out. And then when I moved out here, it's a local comic book store, but like it's like so depressing. Every time you go in there, they're just about to close. Like, oh, we're going out of business. It's like an old timer who's bitter and miserable. But it's funny that you said because I such fond memories of Wednesdays,
yeah.
like working in the comic book store. I love that whole like we would lock the door and take an inventory, and there'd be people out there. We would open up and people would rush in. It was fun. Are you old enough to remember that? I think it was Tuesdays, and then it was Fridays,
Yep.
and then it became Wednesdays, if I remember correctly. But it wasn't always Wednesday that was New Comic Book Day.
Yep, it was Tuesdays and Fridays. That was back in my university days. My lunch break. I worked at a job on campus. Noon, I hang up the little. I'll be back. I went to lunch. I would bolt into Dinkytown in on the U of M campus, grab my comics, and then come on back. Like you probably remember the days where you would have to you have to keep track of like the 7-Elevens and the Ben Franklins because they would have the spinner racks and different convenience stores, different drugstores would carry different Marvel and DC.
Right.
So you kind of had to do a Rubik's cube mix and match, and you knew which ones carried What If, you knew which ones carried like Superman, and you had to kind of make the rounds. And in those days, it was just a crapshoot. You didn't know what was going to be there, but that was kind of part of the part of the fun of the treasure hunt.
Right. The hunt. There's that Motorhead song that the hunt is better than the chase is better than the catch. I remember it was hard to find certain comics. Like I went to this Catholic school. And there was a candy store right next to it, and it just had a wall of comics. And that was like I probably got 90% of the comics that I show on Sunday Comics, the old comics from that store. From third grade to eighth grade, and then when I left that school, junior high school is when my comic book store opened, and I quickly started working there. But I would always get Fantastic Four, Avengers, and I wasn't into DC back then, but the occasional Superman comic or whatever. But it was impossible to find Ghost Rider, and it was impossible to find Doctor Strange, like almost
Yeah.
like anything like supernatural. And then the other one was like Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu was like legendary because we're like, yeah, it exists, but it's but the next town over, they had those comics.
Yep.
So like, I guess it was just whatever the distributors. These guys are always returning Ghost Rider over here. I'm not sending them Ghost Rider, but it was fun to hunt them down.
And back when we were younger, you didn't have the internet, so you'd have like the Overstreet Price Guide,
I
and
didn't
so
even
you'd
know.
be flipping through that, and you'd be like Captain America 110, Captain America 100. Where's Captain America 99? And you're younger, and you're trying to piece together the history of comic books, and
Oh,
in the Overstreet Guide they'd have like three covers on the top left page, three covers on the bottom right page, and you're just kind of like trying to piece together the history of these runs. And I would hear about the Steranko Nick Fury run. Never came across any until the late 90s, but that was kind of part of the fun, is piecing things together and doing the treasure hunt.
yeah. I remember like back in the '60s when Marvel, all the books were split, Tales to Astonish and
Mm-hmm.
everything like that. That was just like the weirdest thing to me. Like why they do this? And then I remember that they made Marvel got out of that distribution deal,
Yep.
so everything's. But they made an Iron Man Submariner #1.
Yeah, Iron Man and Submariner got a number one, and then Cap became Tales of Suspense became Cap, and he started with issue 100
But
as
there was
the
there was Iron Man #1, but this was Iron Man and Submariner number
oh
one.
yeah, yep,
Just
that yep.
because they made one more issue of this that was designed for the split, and that just like confused the hell out of me. I was like, what's going on? And Doctor Strange, I remember I got Doctor Strange 169 in a garage sale. And I was like, wow, there's 169 other Doctor Strange comics. But that was the first issue of Doctor Strange, because before that it was Strange Tales. And like, and I wasn't smart enough to know about the Overstreet Guide. I didn't know about that stuff until I worked at a comic book store. So this was just a kid who went to candy stores. I was like, why can't I find Doctor Strange 87, Doctor Strange, because they didn't make those comics,
When I was a kid, I was like 10 or 11. Every month when the new John Byrne X-Men came out, like the first kid who grabbed it would read it, get on the bike and like kind of do the rounds. There were 3 or 4 other kids in the neighborhood who were comic book people. And it was like you had to snatch those as quickly as you could. And it was just, it was like electric. Each new issue of John Byrne's X-Men. And so we kind of go around, did you see this? Did you see this? And that was another that kind of like that neighborhood grapevine. Hey, there's this Frank Miller comic book. It's about a samurai.
Well, I didn't even know their names at this point. Again, not until I worked at the comic book store did I put like names, like X-Men, X-Men. But like it was funny because I just did a Sunday Comics. I talked about Marvel Team Up 81 to 86 or 85. I forget the exact, but it was written by Cliff Claremont. Go figure how much I love. But the art to me was the same artist as John Byrne of the X-Men, because I was a kid when it came out. I didn't but Marvel had this house style, but that art was man, now, but I remember it was Steve Lailiola and somebody, but it just looked like Marvel art, Marvel art looked and to me, Marvel art was John Byrne art.
Yep.
And at that time, as blasphemous as it is to say, I couldn't stand Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby art was old man art.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh man, like I remember, and then when I got to the comic book store, like I would see like the older people who were coming in, and they would talk about like, Wally would, like they would start mentioning names.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm working in the store. I got to know these names. And then I started to appreciate, Jack Kirby and I hated Steve Ditko. I remember when Steve Ditko did a Micronauts annual number 1.
1 and 2, yeah, he did both annuals. Yeah,
he did Dragon Lord for Marvel Spotlight. It was just like I remember at the time I'm like, is this a computer? Is a computer drawing this? This is so bad. Like Steve Ditko was like poised, but I also had these little tiny reprints of the first Doctor Strangers and the first Hulks. And the first Hulks were
the paperbacks.
Yeah, they were like size books.
Yep.
I had one of the Fantastic Four, so it was like the first 10 issues of the Fantastic Four, the first Doctor Strange, and the first Spider-Man. And I loved those Spider-Mans, and I loved those the Hulks, and I loved the Doctor Strange, but I didn't realize it was the same art because Ditko's style like devolved, if you ask me. Like right next to me on this pack over here, you could see the stack of white comics right here. These are all Ditko's last works. They're like unreadable,
like the Mr. A and the little pamphlets and so forth.
Yeah, the Robin Snyder productions, like they're just like it's almost scary. It's almost like documenting somebody going senile or something.
I will take some of Ditko's like later work, and I'll sit with it like I'm visiting an old friend. But you're right. It's more like a nonfiction. It's more like an essay versus a story.
Yeah, it's polemics.
Yeah,
yeah. They're kind of scary. I keep threatening to break them out and do videos on them, but I'm like
we mentioned the 1970s, late 70s Marvel pocketbook reprints that were the size of a mass market paperback full color.
Right. Those were like my introduction to most Marvel comics.
I got the Captain. See, the first comic book I ever bought off the stands, and I know I was aware of like Spider-Man and Batman just from TV.
Always were, yeah.
The first comic book I picked up off the spinner rack was Captain America 214 by Jack Kirby. So and that's where his art like just popped off the page, where it was like this magic trick where I intellectually I knew it was a 2D image, but it was just energy and vibrancy. So I instantly became a fan of Jack Kirby and Captain America. A couple of years later, I got the Captain America color paperback. I read that thing until the covers fell off. I'm not kidding. That's not like a saying. The covers fell off because I was reading that thing, and it was like the first 20 installments of Tales of Suspense and like Avengers #4. Just loved it. Read it till the covers fell off, and then behind me there's the Penguin did a hardcover Captain America reprint, which is basically those same stories. So now I've got it in like a deluxe gilded hardcover, and I've got the Kirby omnibuses for Captain America. So Jack Kirby and Captain America, two of my favorites. Peanut butter and chocolate, mix it together, you can't beat it.
I got two older brothers, I got two older sisters, so there was always comics at my house. And back in the 70s, there was comics everywhere. And like you said, you read them, other people just gave them to you. We'd go on long drives. It was like a 4-hour drive to my grandfather's house. It was just his comic books. This will shut the kids up kind of thing. We didn't have iPads and TVs in the car. So we just all read them. And I always it was funny because I said like everything was John Byrne. That was later on when I started. But back like as a kid, it was John Buscema was Marvel.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't really catch the Jack Kirby Marvel. That was like before my time, but John Buscema, that was Marvel Comics. And then Marvel Comics became George Perez and John Byrne. The first comics I bought was Thor, I think it was 286. It was Walt Simonson on the cover, hitting the Destroyer. And then Fantastic Four 186. And it was a George Perez inked by Joe Sinnott. And it was, I think it was Len Wein wrote it, and it was the Fantastic Four fighting Claw and the Molecule Man. And I was hooked, but that's the beginning of me collecting comics. But like you said, it was the spinner rack. If you missed an issue, you missed an issue. Too dumb to I'm sure there was a comic book store somewhere, and I didn't know about conventions. I was just a dumb kid. So if you missed it, you missed it. And what you were talking about going around with the X-Men, that was me and my friends with Micronauts.
Okay.
We were obsessed with that Michael Golden, the first 12 issues.
Yeah.
The micro, we read them out of order because we got like number 6 before we got number 5. We missed number 4, and we just it was like the prophecies. The scriptures are here. Like we would try to decipher and figure out what was going on. It was so freaking cool. And I read them. They hold up. They're good.
Yeah. I love Bill Mantlo. Bill Mantlo, between Rom and his Hulk run. Bill Mantlo is, in my mind, he like, basically, it's like Roger Stern and Bill Mantlo are peak Bronze Age Marvel writers.
Oh, yeah,
because they told one, they managed to tell 1 issue and 2 issue story arcs, so nothing ever got stale. But there was always a direction, and there was always a through line, and things organically moved from story arc to story arc. And just if you look at like the Rom run or the Hulk run for Bill Mantlo, he went in so many directions. So he explored so many ideas, so many directions, just a thrill ride.
Yeah, I Bill Mantlo, I reread Rom. I don't know why, but I lived out in Albuquerque for a couple of years, but my Rom run was in New York. So I was like, when I go home, one of the first things I'm doing is rereading Rom. So I reread Rom, I think around 2008 or so. That is awesome. And I forgot that it was Bill Mantlo. And I was like, Bill Mantlo, he took Rom, which is a toy. I forget if it was Mattel or Hasbro or Parker Brothers. I forget, but it was a toy that it shouldn't have been as good as it was.
I saw one in the wild. I saw one real Rom toy back in the day.
I didn't want it. It was a crappy toy. It was a crappy toy, but the book was a lot of fun. And then he did Micronauts, and then unfortunately he did Alpha Flight, which was just Bill Mantlo's Alpha Flight run was one of the worst comic book runs I've ever read in my life. I don't know what happened there.
I blame John Byrne. John Byrne wanted to do the Hulk, and he said, "I'm getting sick of Alpha Flight," so they did the switcheroo. And I think Bill Mantlo was blindsided by that. I don't know if he ever caught his ever got his sea legs.
I didn't realize that.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. Yeah. Byrne wanted to do the Hulk, and Bill Mantlo, Bill Mantlo had such a fantastic run, and he had, at the end of the Sal Buscema run, after issue 300, they put him they put him, they exiled him to this other dimension, and it was time to bring him back to Earth. And John Byrne said, you know what, I really want to, I would really want to do the Hulk, and just because of his clout, he was able to get that switcheroo.
Yeah, yeah. Back then it was the John Byrne 40,000. I remember.
Yep.
Every title that he took over went up 40,000. They followed him around.
Yep. I was one of them. I would read.
Me too.
I would still pick up anything.
I said this before and I caught some hell, but I'm going to repeat it because I'm stupid. But I will go out of my way to say that I think John Byrne's a better writer than Chris Claremont, and my evidence is name a Chris Claremont run that's besides the X-Men. With John Byrne, you could say the Hulk. You could say say Alpha Flight. You could say the Fantastic Four. You could say his Next Men. And I'm She-Hulk. The She-Hulk bothered me because I don't like breaking the fourth wall. But Submariner, you know what I mean? John Byrne did it all. He wrote so many different things, and everyone was great. Chris Claremont, you took him off the X, and even the X-Men. Half of his X-Men run I didn't like. I quit reading the X-Men while Jim Byrne, while Chris Claremont was still writing it. Mm-hmm. They started being whiners and hypocrites. I just couldn't deal with them.
Yeah,
Byrne never liked Alpha Flight. I think he just was ordered to do it.
I think he was, yeah.
And he kind of sabotaged it because, except for the first issue, they never did anything as a team. While Byrne was, it was like one or two guys telling stories. It was always a weird comic.
It was.
So you got a comic out there, right?
Yeah. So I mentioned that I came across comic books in Jack Kirby with Captain America 214. Fell in love with the medium. It really clicked with me. I started drawing myself, like at the kitchen table, all that type of stuff. And then in 1983, I came across Nexus #2 by Mike Baron and Steve Rude. That was the first indie comic book that I bought, and it just blew me away. I mean, Jack Kirby made me love comic books. Mike Baron and Steve Rude made me see what comic books can be in terms of, and for those of you that have never read Nexus, there's over 100 issues. Mike Baron and Steve Rude are still doing stories now. I highly recommend you go seek it out. You'll find it.
Nexus.
What's that?
There's nothing else like Nexus.
Nothing. A few things are as well written. A few things are as well drawn. The paper, the coloring, the quality, the story ideas. If you take like 3 or 4 pages of Nexus, Mike Baron is throwing out more ideas than most writers come up with, like in a whole issue or a whole story arc. And because Nexus is this kind of this future canvas, sci-fi canvas where just anything can happen. It goes anywhere they need it to go, and it's a great, compelling story. But that's where I said, this is amazing. This is what comic books can be. So I stayed connected to the medium. Was doing my own like little zines, doing my own little comic books, Xeroxing and so forth. Then in the 1990s, I actually self-published Jupiter, which you see behind me. This is the current iteration of Jupiter. It's full color, 40 pages. But back in the 90s, I did Jupiter as an independent black and white comic. Went 9 issues. It was critically acclaimed, but I shoestring budget. I had no marketing budget for it.
You drew it and everything?
Yep, drew it, wrote it, did everything. And I maintained a monthly schedule, had a lot of fun. Diamond liked it a lot. They would spotlight it in the previous catalog.
Funny, and I had like deja vu. I was like, I know this comic, but it's new, so,
You'd heard about it in the past?
Now I'm looking at the covers. I recognize these. Jeez.
Yeah. And so the thing with Jupiter is when people came across Jupiter, they kept buying it, but it was with the direct market, it's very hard to get. The barrier to entry is very difficult because with direct market, if you're the comic book shop, you order it, you own it. And so you're only going to order what you're guaranteed to sell. And I'm not a big name, things like that. So Jupiter hung around for 9 issues, and I would work with Diamond to send out like promo packs where Diamond would say, okay, Jason, here's the top 1,000 stores that sell like 8-ball. Here's the top 500 stores that sell Cerebus. give us the free comic book with a cover letter. We will for free deliver it to those comic book shops and try to entice them into ordering it. We tried that a few times, couldn't move the needle. And again, it was just me, no marketing budget. So after 9 issues, the sales were basically flat. And it was like, you know what? I'm in my mid-20s. I've got to, get married, get the house, to get life going. I've got to do the things you have to do when you're in your 20s and 30s. So I kept reading comics, but I stopped, producing. I was focusing on other stuff. And then flash forward to about 4 years ago, I become aware of Ethan Van Sciver and the crowdfunding revolution, where I said, you know what, this is amazing. This is more direct than the direct market.
Right.
The direct market, you've got to go through the retailers and things like that. And then additionally, the crowdfunding market is inadvertently bringing the North American comic book market towards the European model. And what I mean by that is, in Europe, a comic book creator will put out 1 or 2 deluxe graphic novels a year. It's not a monthly grind.
Right.
So people like you and myself, people who love creating, we don't have to do a monthly schedule. We can put as much attention and time and detail into the book, put out 1 or 2 a year, and people are happy, because instead of spending $5 or $6 12 times a year for crap, I'm getting 2 or 3 beautiful books from people like Graham Nolan, people like my friend Craig White, who does Soul Tack. I'm getting a couple of those from each of them every year, but every month something's coming to me in the mail. I've got Von Coleman's Phenomenova. I've got Aaron C's Immortal Rising, and I would rather spend 10 or 15 bucks a week and get a 30, 40 page comic book that I'm going to enjoy and treasure, versus just shilling out for the latest Marvel DC landfill.
And plus, they like you.
There's that. There's that too. There's that too. Yeah. So
I don't make any illusions. I met Von Colin. We've had dinner together. I'd like to think that he likes me. I've met Graham Nolan. Maybe he's indifferent, but they're not openly hostile to me, and that's all I want. Right. Don't insult me, which is bizarrely seems to be going on a lot, and not just in comic books, video games, TV shows. It's like, dude, what is wrong?
It has gotten out of control for about 10 years. I think the universe is healing slowly. It's slowly healing. It's going to take a long time for the bile to get worked out. But you're right. It is crazy when you have Marvel editors and Marvel creative people saying, we do not like our readers. We want to get rid of them. In fact, we find them contemptible. And the other thing is that in the era we live in, they want to use art as a weapon. So in my mind, art should be an escape. It should be an enlightening escape. It should be a beneficial escape. It should not be a diatribe, should not be a polemic. And they can't help themselves. Right. They have to bring their rant into the art.
Are like, did you watch The Penguin? And I'm like, no. I'm like, but you like comic books and stuff, but I don't want to explain because they're normies. But I'm like, I don't want to watch a show 3 episodes in and then I get a lecture about why white people are bad or why this white man are the enemy. Or I don't want to be like, I 4 hours of my life. I'm 57 years old. How many hours do I have left on this earth? I don't want to be tricked and then lectured. So I don't watch anything new until like now. I'm going to watch The Penguin because everybody said it was excellent.
Are you saying that after a hard day of work, taking care of your customers, taking care of your boss, serving the general public, and paying your taxes, you don't want to come home and feel like you're in an HR seminar?
Right. Be told that I'm a bad guy or whatever, and I was, for a while, I was just like, okay, let's get this over with. And now it's like I have a zero, like in the middle of something, I'll just be like, nope.
Life is too short. Life's too short for bad art.
My wife, we were watching TV. She's like, "Oh, this War of the Rohirrim. It's Tolkien. You want to go see that?" I go, "Nope." And she goes, "Why?" I said, "Because this character doesn't exist. This character's not. She's not in Tolkien. This studio can make up characters and make up stories about. Then it's not Tolkien. And she's like, I think she's just like, he's doing it again, but like knows me well enough to know that I'm not going to watch it. You know, you got me on a tirade, but like, if you're embarrassed by the source material,
Yeah.
don't do it. And if you think you're better than Kirby, Tolkien, C.S. Lewis or George Lucas, then you shouldn't be working on it. If I had the extreme luck or whatever of like, John, you're going to be working on a Fantastic Four movie, I'm going to make it as much like Kirby and
Mhm.
If I'm doing the John Byrne run, it's going to be as much like Byrne as possible. If I'm doing, because who am I? I'm nobody. If I was somebody, I would have my own stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it gets me nuts. So, in other words, when I do my Jupiter TV show, when they hire me to do Jupiter, I'm gonna hire, let's see, Lizzo to be your main character. But I don't know. I digress. It's funny because my comic heroic tales, people are like, oh, who's gonna play? It's kind of a reaction to it, but at the same time, I was like, am I turning into the opposite lecture? You know what I mean? Like because I was like, I'm tired of like men being the bad guys. Like I'm tired of like the husbands being the butt of the joke. Mm-hmm. So I made up a character called the patriarch.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I got to be really careful that it's not a lecture from my side.
Right.
And then, because I wanted, so, I rewrote the script a few times. I mean, the stuff I believe is in there, but I don't think
I haven't read Heroic Tales. I backed it
today. Yeah.
But what my sense in having, you were on the Friday nights and I've seen you on some other interviews. My sense of you is that you're just like, I believe in traditionalism.
Right.
And that is what it is. I don't need to sit there and argue its merits. I'm just gonna be traditional. I'm gonna give you a heroic character. I'm gonna give you somebody who's
individuality. Like I don't care what your family life is like. If it works for you, it works for you. Just don't harm kids and don't tell me I'm wrong.
Right.
I don't understand what Marvel Comics and DC Comics were doing when comic sales have been going down and down and down. And
John, you're losing the forest for the trees. Don't you understand how creative Marvel is? They've got a character called Soft Serve. Do you know what Soft Serve's superpower is?
Is this real?
Yes. Oh. Yes.
What's Soft Serve?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Those of you in the chat, if you know who the X-Men character Soft Serve is, please put in the chat Soft Serve's superpower.
All I can picture, and I live in New York where we have Carvel ice cream. I'm picturing she poops in a little. Yes. Is that it?
That's it. Yes.
Oh my God!
I'm not joking. So why would you want to disparage Marvel? I mean, this is a creative wellspring of great ideas. Oh
my God, it's funny because I these days I can't turn on a camera without talking. I play role-playing games, and every once in a while, me and my friends like, let's make up joke characters. Like after that movie Mystery Men came out, we'll make up Mystery Men campaigns, and we'll do just the most ridiculous. Like we don't even roll up characters; we just pick pathetic characters. Soft Serve sounds like one of the characters that my friends would have made up.
I love Keith Giffen. Were you a fan of Keith Giffen?
Yeah.
And so Keith Giffen, he had a fondness for like the Legion of Substitute Heroes.
Right. He made up Ambush Bug and
yeah. He could probably do something good with Soft Serve, but Marvel, I don't know. But that crowdfunding revolution got the wheels turning 4 years ago. And what you see before you with John sharing on the screen is Jupiter issue 1. So it crowdfunded in summer of 2023. The campaign ran 110 days between launch and fulfillment. It's 40 pages full color, and it's basically in demand on Indiegogo. So I'm making the rounds because, as you can see,
it's $10.
It's $13. But I'm on the way. I'm making the rounds because I want to get the book to 10K. Because I'm hard at work at issue 2. So I'm making the rounds and trying to get some more eyeballs on it, so that when I launch issue 2, I've got more readers who are looking forward to issue 2. So that's what kind of brings me to making the rounds.
Oh, good for you. See, you know, it's funny. I think I have 252 backers also. It's funny. Yeah.
The One of the cool things about Jupiter is it takes place in a world where Jack Kirby, it was so back in the 1950s. Jack Kirby had his own comic book company called Mainline. It lasted a few years, had 4 titles, and then because of distribution issues, it didn't pan out. So he went back to work for DC, made the Challenger of the Unknown, all that kind of stuff. But in the world of Jupiter, um, there was a 5th comic book by Mainline Comics called Captain Kleinbottle. And in the world of Jupiter, it took off. It was a big hit, and Mainline Comics stayed in business. So one of the bit of my world building here is that this Captain Kleinbottle character
Oh,
exists in the.
I hit the wrong button. I'm sorry.
So this is the front cover of Jupiter issue 1. This is the back cover. This is that Captain Kleinbottle character. So as you can see, I draw it in the style. I draw it in the style
I love
of
that
Jack.
style.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to channel Jack Kirby. But the premise of Jupiter is that, unlike Marvel and DC, where there's too many heroes, like you swing a dead cat, you hit a superhero, and they stand around talking, right?
And
In the world of Jupiter,
and they all want to be treated the same as everybody else, except when they are treated like everybody else. Then they want preferential treatment.
And they all want to talk about their rent and how they can't get good coffee. But in the world of Jupiter, there aren't any superheroes. It's a normal world. However, the people read comic books by Jack Kirby. So this is an example of that Captain Kleinbottle comic book that exists in the world of Jupiter. And as you can see, I've got it evokes the 1970s Marvel trade dress.
It looks like a lost Marvel comic.
But it's Mainline Comics. So part of the fun of Jupiter is that every issue has the main story here about this character in her arc to become her world's first, greatest, and only superhero. But along the way, she's touching base with this Captain Kleinbottle character by reading the comic books, and those are providing milestones on her journey. So this character here, this is the main character. Her name is Brenda. The story of Jupiter is that she and her family go to a cabin to get away from a family tragedy. I don't tell you in the first issue what that tragedy is, but there's clues in there. But regardless, they're trying to get away and kind of reset their lives. And when they're up at this cabin, a hole in reality rips open, and this otherwise normal world that's like ours has a strange visitor from another world crash into their world as a result of a revolution in a neighboring dimension. This sets off the chain reaction that will lead this character here to become a superhero. But along the way, she's got her way is guided by this Captain Kleinbottle character.
So she becomes the first superhero, and she uses Kirby as a guidepost of how to behave and how to act. I like that.
Exactly. Because when you think about it, if it's a normal world, and suddenly you have this amazing special power, it's not a foregone conclusion that you're going to become a superhero. It's also not a foregone conclusion that you're not going to become a criminal. So, and the nature of the ability she gets as a result of this first issue is she can go anywhere. Now, she wants to run away from home because she's sad. She's upset with her family. She wants to run away from home.
Teenage stuff. What kid didn't want to run away from home? You know.
Exactly. She could get. She'd never have to do homework again. But the thing is,
you want me to make my bed? I'm leaving. I'll show you.
Forget you, Jordan Peterson. I'm going to go to another dimension where I don't have to do homework. So she suddenly can go anywhere. But because of what's happening in this first issue, threats are coming. So she has to decide between fight or flight. Does she run away from home and escape all the problems, or does she stay and fight? And that's kind of our hero's journey, which sets off this first arc.
It's funny that you said that, because who was I talking to? I talk to so many people now. I forget, but I said, like, just imagine if all of a sudden you had a snap and 1 million people on Earth in the real world got superpowers. I would say 80% of them would be villains. It's just human nature. Like, And I'm not saying I would be the one Superman, but like all of a sudden I get the ability to I don't know, control minds. You know, it'd be like, hey, you know, stop misbehaving in public. I'd say stop me. And next thing you know, it's like you're gonna charge me nothing for that extra soda. You know what I mean? And then it's a slippery slope before
It's a slippery slope.
it's a slippery slope before I'm like walking into Fort Knox. You know what I mean? You know, we all are. So it takes, you know, like that's why I like Lord of the Rings. You know, Samwise didn't succumb to the power of the ring.
Yeah.
He was tempted, you know. I'd be bicycle. Yeah, in a world of Superman, Clark C. Superman has a secret identity. There's a deep cut Monty Python reference. Hello there. Yeah. So I like that you have a flip book. If I may talk for a second about my comic, going forward, issue 2, it's going to be a flip book. Do you see how he had a cover on one side, then you flip the comic over? Yeah. That's the way my comic's going to be. It's going to have the patriarch story on one side. You flip it over. It's going to have every issue is going to have the patriarch, and then every issue is going to have a different cover on the character on the back.
So those of you watching, myself and John, we care about you as consumers. We're not like Marvel and DC. We're going to try and sell you.
I hate you all. You're dirty fatty. I hate you, Courtney. You're out of here. I'll never understand that.
We're not going to try and trick you into buying 2 comics
with
covers. We're going to give you 1 comic with 2 covers because we care about the reader.
Right. Yeah. Well, because I'm not a millionaire that can produce a million comics either. You know, I got a million ideas. This is the most efficient way to do it. Now, let me ask you, is there a Captain Klein comic? Like when I open it up on the Captain Klein?
Yeah. I'll show you
a Kirby comic, and I got a Dave Sandberg.
There you go, right there. So this is an example of this is her here reading this Captain Klein bottle comic. So every issue Jupiter will have like between 5 or 10 pages where she's just going about her regular business. She picks up a Captain Klein bottle comic book. So I get that comic book within a comic book, try to create that diegetic experience.
Cool.
And you know, granted, you know, Alan Moore did that in Watchmen with the Tales of the Black Freighter, but I'm really mixing up the art style to get you that feel of a classic Bronze Age comic. So I've got
Bronze Age is my thing. I'm going to bring up your campaign again. I just want to point out that I'm working on a comic book with Oscar Carreno and Tonic Bowl. I don't know if you're familiar with.
Yep, I know who he is. Yep,
it's Tonic Bowl is drawing the real life story of Eddie Pagano, a comic book. He's 35 years old, and his father says, "I'm retiring. I'm moving to Florida. You have to move out of the basement." So Eddie's world is collapsing. He's 35 years old. He has this sweet setup in the basement. Now he has to get his own place. His world is colliding. And then he goes to the comic book store to complain. "Oh, my father, how could he do this to me?" And he gets a comic called The Doomed Earth. And The Doomed Earth is Crisis on Infinite Earths. So all the comics of his childhood are ending. And they're so he can't even find solace in the comic book world. So I'm doing the same thing. It's going to be
fun.
Oscar does this wonderful Golden Age, Silver Age style, and the Tonic Bowl is going to do this like, Love and Rockets type more, style. So there's, when they're picking up the comic or reading it, it's going to be full color with Kirby crackle and everything, and then it's going to be like guys with wrinkled clothes. You know what I mean?
Love it.
So there you go.
And Tonic Bowl, he's a workaholic. That guy's a workhorse. He's amazing. Great guy.
He's so good. So good. So I'm going to bring up you go.
Another thing I want to point out is that I've got a rule. That is, if you go to a comic book shop and randomly pick up a comic book, if it's got a pie ad, 80% chance it's going to be a great comic book. So in order to work, and I view that as a universal constant. If you've got a pie ad, it's going to be a good comic.
After you read my comic book.
What's that?
I said, get back to me tomorrow after you read my comic.
Yeah, I know. You mentioned that on the Friday night. So those of you watching,
there's a hosted ad in it.
Perfect. So those of you watching, you can tell John and I are kindred spirits. We believe that if a comic book has a pie ad, it raises the game of the comic book. So this is a fictitious pie ad company, Anton's Pies. You can get a blueberry, apple, or cherry, but this is Captain Klein bottle selling the pies in Jupiter, and he meets Salvador Dali. So you can't get.
Oh, is that who that? I thought that was Vincent Price.
Salvador Dali. So again, this gets back to just like the most important thing is I want to have fun so that you have fun. But there's all these little, there's all these vibes, there's all these ideas that are floating around out there that I want to like boil down and get into Jupiter to keep the fun alive.
Yeah, it's funny because I have a Sea Monkeys ad, and I have
You do?
and then I have a
Did
letter.
did you ever order sea monkeys?
No, but my friend Mike ordered Sea Monkeys, and I was like, I, I went to his house, and I'm like, hey, what's up? He's like, I got Sea Monkeys. I could tell right from the tone. I was like, oh, that bad? Like even as a kid, I knew that they were. So he showed me, and it's just like insects. It's like little tiny little. It's brine shrimp. They might as well be insects. Just and they stunk. I was
Oh
like, oh
man.
great, I'm glad. And he also ordered the Roman Legion.
Oh yeah.
That
Yeah.
wasn't bad, but the thing was,
Okay.
it was like 50% little plastic toys and 50% like little paper standees.
Okay. Oh man.
But it was like $3. Even
How,
back then, it was affordable, so who cared?
how about the X-ray specs? Did you ever fall for the X-ray specs?
No, but somebody had I didn't fall from, but I remember having them, and I knew that they couldn't work, but they appeared to the horny little kid because they always just showed like you could see through girls' clothes. Like they never like showed like guy going like looking through a vault or anything.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Or saving a puppy or cat that's stuck in a pipe. It was always checking out some buxom girl like, oh wow, you could see your bra strap. The same with the hypno coin. You had the hypno coin, and it was just like this big booby chick going like this, like Frankenstein. And it's like, you don't hypnotize your teacher to give you a good grade, you know what I mean, or the milkshake guy to give you a free milkshake. You hypnotizing the girl in the miniskirt. I that's something I always wanted to do, is like a goofy story about a kid who orders all of the stuff and becomes a superhero.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
He gets a hypno coin. He gets that Hercules strong
Yes.
band,
Yes. Yeah. That's $1 million idea. Love it. Love it.
Oh, the ads in Heroic Tales are great. Yeah, I get. So now that you know ads, Matt Bauer's going to do the Charles Atlas Hero on the Beach
Nice.
ad next issue, and then I want to do like a fake well, not fake, it'll be real, but like a comic strip, like a Calvin and Hobbes. So it's going to be one page is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then they turn it over and it's going to be full page color Sunday.
Love it.
I want it to be a surprise to one particular person who I'm, goofing with, one of my friends.
Nice.
What about the 90-pound weekly? Yeah, I want to do a Count Dante ad at some point in the future. You remember the Deadliest Man?
Was that like a kung fu thing or something like that? Okay.
Count Dante, the deadliest man in the world. And he was like this. And he looked like Wolfman Jack. So of course it's going to be a picture of me.
Oh yeah.
Count Longbox or something like that. Yeah, the 90-pound weekly. Yeah, I want to definitely do that. Matt is great because I just was like, this is what I'm thinking of doing. And he was like, okay. And then I didn't hear from him for like 2 months. And I don't want to be a pest. I don't want to be like, hey, you got that? You got that? You got that for? So like, I don't. And then all of a sudden one day he's like, I kind of finished this. Is this okay? And I was like, oh my, I'm so glad I didn't interfere because it's 10 times better than I would have. I just gave him a title and I said, here, I kind of think this. And it was so good. So good. So I kind of doing the same thing. Kind of just gave him a suggestion and then I'm putting it out of my mind to see what he comes up with. That's Brian awesome. Bow did a Fun Factory ad too. Where you could buy the Hypno coin in the.
Okay.
So that's the last page in the book. So let's bring up your campaign. Can I play your trailer?
Yeah. Now, be advised, the trailer is like 4 or 5 like 30-second clips, so you can play it and then pause it. We can talk. Okay. You probably don't want to go the whole like 2 minutes.
Okay, so I'm going to make it big, and then you tell me to stop, and we'll stop. Oh, I'm hitting on the wrong thing.
So that's the first ad, and it's kind of a it's obviously a collection of blurbs, and it's a sampling of the different art styles from the comic, and you can tell that I draw in different styles depending on when
Yeah.
you see the story.
I was looking at it, I'm like, oh, this is Mobius. And then as soon as I thought of that, I'm like, this is Joe Matt's Peep Show. And then as soon as I thought of that, I'm like, you back to Kirby. You know, I'm thinking this is right up my alley. I'm amazed I didn't back this yet. I do think I have some of your Jupiter comics. I gotta
Back the black and whites.
Yeah, unfortunately, my computer crapped the bed, and I lost my database. I'm in the process of rescanning it, and then I broke my neck, and I wasn't allowed to pick up boxes. So I got to get back. I'm up to I forget what I'm up to. I think I'm up to F.
Okay.
So but I remember seeing them. But then again, I worked in the comic book store, so maybe I said, I'm pretty sure that I have some of your comics.
And a lot of people tell me they're like I never. You can go on eBay and get old issues of Jupiter, but if you go to the comic book shops, by and large, people that read it back in the day, they held on to them. Like, for
my comic book room is the black hole of comics. Once they go in there, they never leave. You know?
Yeah, very good. Like, so for my day job, I will travel. Like this year, I've been to New York, Orlando, St. Louis, Portland, and Las Vegas. Every time I travel, I'll be in a different city for a week doing my day job, but I will always go to the local comic book shops. I'll go right through the phone book, and I'll go to every one of the comic book shops. And naturally, I've got my own like back issue list I'm hunting down. But out of just natural curiosity, I'll go to the J's and I'll look for Jupiter. I never find it, which tells me people held on to it.
Wanted to see if anybody was selling it. I'm like, they're not selling it. That's good.
So I mean, you can get on eBay, but when you look in the back issue bins, you hardly ever come across it. If you do, pick it up. Those of you watching, pick it up. Let me know what you think on Twitter. Again, it was 20 years ago, so my art style has improved, and I think
I'm back. I was going to back it now, but I don't back live anymore because I'm always afraid my information is going to get out.
Okay, but I appreciate that.
It's funny because I pretty much do 2 conversations a week, and it's somebody that I've already talked to. It's like, oh great, every Wednesday I spend $20.
You can make it a business expense. You can call it a business expense, and your taxes you can call it call it research, market research.
Yeah, well. You got to make a profit before you pay tax. Don't worry about that. One of the guys at work was like, "Oh, you're gonna get hit with a tax bill for your comic." I was like, "Not if I don't make any money."
That's right. That's right. Yeah, your first dollar off the comic book is taxed at the marginal rate of your last dollar at your day job. So by and large, you're better off kind of breaking even and building up an audience. And then when you go into retirement, because the beauty of what we're doing is we can do this in retirement, right? So in 5 years from now, so you've got 5 years to continue to build your channel, build up your audience. You ease out of the day job, and suddenly you're doing what you love full time and making money off of it.
It's funny you said that because I live in New York, and I'm
sorry.
I know. No, unless all of this stuff that the new administration has promised comes true, I can't live here when I retire. And I have a good job. And I have a small house, and I kind of have a small lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to get at it. My wife wants to move to Alaska, and I'm like, I could still make comics in Alaska. All you need is the internet, and I could do my YouTube channel, and make a comic book. I don't care. It's not like people are knocking down my doors to hang out my house here, in New York. Everybody I talk to lives somewhere else.
There you go. So that first clip we showed, it was a mix of the art styles with some really, really gracious blurbs from different people like Scott McCloud and previews and so forth. Now, I mentioned earlier that the premise of Jupiter is it's a normal world where suddenly this hole in reality opens up and this refugee comes through from another dimension. The next clip shows you that other world and that revolution that basically changes the trajectory of my main character's life. So we can play the next little clip and it'll kind of fill in some of that.
Here we go. I'll make this big and I'll hit continue. You colored it also?
Yep, colored it too. So that was a lot of fun to do because I got to get the like the Michael Bay that sound effect going.
Trying to ask you why it's called Jupiter, but I think that's to know.
So I wanna assure the audience that I don't do drugs. I want to assure the audience that I don't do drugs. My brain just works works a little strangely. So
Well,
I
it's
hope
funny that you
those.
said that because Steve Ditko, when he was doing Doctor Strange, college kids were asking him, "What kind of drugs do you do?" And Ditko would get pissed off. He's like, "I use my mind. I don't need drugs." So there you go.
So that bit with the bit with the hourglass in the house, and the bit before that, there was kind of this 1930s surrealist landscape. Those are from another part of Jupiter, and big picture. I've Jupiter's like 40 pages, right? It's a thick comic book. So I've got this huge canvas. So most of the book is this story that we've been talking about with the Captain Klein bottle and my character Brenda and the family and the revolution, the other dimension. That's like 3/4 of the book. The rest of the book is this wide open canvas for me where I'll do these short little 1-page cubist and kind of dream like surrealist cubist comic strips, 3 or 4 pages. And it lets me go nonlinear. And what I wanted to do was I knew that because it's going to take, several issues and several years to tell this story arc, I wanted there to be something in each issue that was self-contained. So in the pages of Jupiter,
I think that's a good idea. I did. I'm sorry to keep bringing up my comic, but I did the same thing. If you buy my comic, you get 2 complete stories. Because
perfect.
Let's face it, I think it's a big ass to here's spend all this money, and you don't mind waiting 2 more years for the rest of the story, do you? And there's no guarantee that I'll do it. So if I never make another comic book again, you got 2 complete stories.
Exactly. And the other thing is, so one of the wonderful things. So when you look at the comic book as an art form, there's stories. There's comic book characters that have been living for decades, and they're kind of open ended, right? But the magic trick of the comic book is that you get to the last page, and you're like, "Where's the next issue?" Because whether it be a cliffhanger, whether it be a revelation, they're designed to make you want to come back next month and get the next issue. So knowing that there's always that ongoing part of the comic book, it seemed to me that in Jupiter, I wanted to have palate cleansers. I wanted to have little desserts, little things to kind of tide you over. And so I've got this, this cubic strip called Placebo Addiction, which is where you saw that the stuff with the that landscape with the bicycle.
I'm starting not to believe that you don't take drugs. Sorry.
But then I also have little short stories like this horror story here. This horror story about this young boy who in the middle of the night hears a sound outside his window, goes to the window, and he sees the tail of a dragon. And being a young boy who's fearless, he goes out into the night to hunt down that dragon. and he at the periphery of his vision, he sees all kinds of monsters in the streets, and it's a 4-page little parable story. And I go to Marvel and DC. If I were to go to Marvel and DC, they'd say it's not a cape. It's not a cape story. Get out of here. But because I'm self-published,
right, you could do what
I
you
can
want.
do what I want. Do what I want.
Eric
So
Grant says that's how I felt. He's talking about wanting more. That's how I felt with both Jupiter and Heroic Tales. Give me more, you bellends. You're welcome, I think.
2025. I'm about halfway done with Jupiter issue 2, 2025.
So he already has your comic? So you
Yep. So it funded and the campaign fulfilled July of 2023. So it's in demand.
Oh, okay. Now let me ask you this:
Yeah.
Is it new stuff or is it old?
It's all new. Yeah, it's all new. So if you read,
because that's how I am. I'm a completionist. I'm gonna track down the other 9 issues.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to. If you like my stuff, you can.
But do anything. I'm a crazy person. I'm gonna do it.
So if there's anybody watching or
right here.
I can see it. Well, you look behind me. I basically live, my studio is like a comic book shop. But this is all new stuff. There's some background elements and there's some motifs that echo back to the 1990s Jupiter, but by no means do you have to read the 1990s Jupiter to understand this. This is a fresh start. But if you dig it, you're welcome to check out the 1990s. And the other thing is, I do have on Amazon Comixology, I do have a thing called Jupiter issue 0, which is $10, and it's about half of the Jupiter from the 1990s. It's the stuff where about 3 or 4 years ago I said, okay, of the 9 issues, what pages and what stories am I not embarrassed about? Like where I'm not like, it's not hard to look at. So I did create a Kindle Comixology collection of the best of Jupiter. So if you don't want to hunt down the 1990s Jupiter, you can go to Amazon Comixology, look for Jupiter issue 0.
Cool. Yeah, this is right up my alley. I'm sure I have an issue with 2. I know I don't have all 9, but I'm sure I have an issue with 2. Comics just kind of appeared at our place, but this looks like a comic books fan's comic.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing is, I think normies can get into it, but also if you have got comic books in your DNA and your if you live it and breathe it, I think you're gonna enjoy it.
Did you read Larry Marder's Bean World at all?
I saw a couple pages of it and I was intrigued, but I never actually read any of it.
It's because the guy who owned my comic book store, his name was Larry. I used to call him my comic pusher. He was always, I always liked Batman and Fantastic Four stuff. He was always trying to get me to read other stuff. He got me to read Love and Rockets. And
nice.
The funny thing is, the one thing he tried to get me to read was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I had the first issue in my hand. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Still never. It was literally in my hand, and I didn't buy it.
Yeah.
But his favorite comic was Bean World. And I went through I can't buy this comic. To the point, it seemed like. Do you remember the Son of Sam? When he got arrested, they went into his apartment, Dave Berkowitz, and he had scrawls all over his apartment, and they published it in the newspaper, and it was like the madman's rantings of a schizophrenic. I get the same feeling with Bean World, and I got the same feeling with these Steve Ditko comics. Yeah. So, I read the first issue, and I'm like, it literally scared me, even though it was charming. And then I grew to like it. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but it's just that Jupiter came out in the 90s, and
yeah.
All of those black and white. It was such a great time, is what I'm saying. Is everybody came out with such interesting, different comics. If whatever you liked, you could have gotten in the 80s and 90s. So funding is bringing that back.
So yeah, and so behind me on my shelf over there, I've got collections of Zot, Aztec Ace, Dreadstar, and obviously I've got all the Nexus, and so I agree. If you loved that era of indie comic books, you're gonna dig Jupiter.
Yeah, I do. I love all that stuff. I'm rereading Nexus now because Mike Barrett and Kelsey Shannon are coming out with a new comic, and I'm like, I want to get all the references, even though Mike Barron says you don't have to read them all. Well, I'm a crazy person. I have to reread them all.
No, it's
You know?
great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I like I said, looking at that ad, it's like you like, oh, okay, this is inspired by Mobius. Oh, now it's inspired. Are you familiar with Joe Matt's Peep Show?
Yeah, I had I had sorry.
Yeah, he just died.
I read the back in like 93, I had the trade paperback of his Peep Show diary comic strips. I enjoyed those. And then I probably read like the first 4 issues of Peep Show, but then I just kind of parted ways. Same thing with Chester Brown at a certain point with Yummy Fur. Actually, I think I finished Yummy Fur,
Wow,
but post Yummy Fur, I just kind of parted ways. It didn't. That guy, I didn't. I was no longer charmed by it.
Well, it
but
was
I did
about the
appreciate
lives of like disgusting people.
Yeah, there's that
Like,
too. Yeah.
when you read Joe Matt's Peep Show, you're just like, I think I need a shower after watching.
It's like,
but the point being is your comic, it's I can't peg it down. You know, I saw some Mobius in there Mobius to me is like pinnacle.
The tagline is becoming synonymous with the indescribable.
Yeah, there you go. It works, you know. And that's great. Scott McCloud. You can't get Scott McCloud wrote the book on comics, literally.
You did,
yeah. That's a great. How embarrassing for me. I met John Romita Sr. and my coworker lives next door to, used to. John Romita passed, and he didn't realize what a big deal he was. So I went to his house. I went to his house 3 times, and the third time I was like, I got to bring a gift. So I bring John Romita Sr. Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics. Like John Romita Sr. He understands comics. But, you know what I mean? But, he was like, oh, thank you. And he probably was just like, I don't need this, And, I felt like I had to give him something.
I love John Romita. I love John Romita Jr. as well. But yeah, just a legend, just a beautiful. His Spider-Man was obviously different than Ditko's. I love the creepiness of the Ditko Spider-Man, but I also love the beauty and the energy of the John Romita Spider-Man. Yeah. Just amazing work.
And it's funny, I was in his room where he drew. His art well lit. I guess it would be like a TV room for a non-comic book guy, but it was just this well lit studio with windows everywhere. And I'm like, I've been in this room before. He drew that room in Aunt May's house.
Okay.
And then as I was leaving, I'm looking at the house. I'm like, this is Aunt May's house. Like he drew. I was in a comic book. It was so weird that it was familiar. Like I guess if you did Doom, if somewhere of these dungeons of Doom, I could run these dungeons in real life of all the times I played them on video games. But that's what it was like. It's so cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So back to your comic, because I'm a crazy person who gets distracted easily. If I was to, I could buy this tonight, and it's out in the mail.
Yeah, basically, I've got several thousand copies over here in my studio. The comic book is in demand.
You're turning over comic book boxes of your own stuff too?
Oh yeah, definitely.
My comic, they're getting too heavy for me to carry.
And it's $5 shipping and handling for any U.S. backers, and I basically fulfill the orders the following day. So those of you that are intrigued by this, you can go ahead and back it. If you're a retailer or if you've got an online store that you sell comic books from, there is a retailer tier. You get 8 copies half off, so $52 for 8 copies, and then. And I think I do free shipping for the retailer, but anyways, it's $13 plus $5 shipping, handling, 40 pages, full color. And then the other thing I want to mention is that we hit my 2 stretch goals. So the first stretch goal was an official Captain Klein Bottle fan club membership card. So you get one of these if you back Jupiter. And you get an official Legion of Memers license to meme. So anyone who backs Jupiter gets these 2 little cards here for free. It's PVC. These are beautiful cards. You can put them in your wallet. And, if you encounter the meme police, if there's a meme checkpoint, you just got to pull this out and you're good to go.
Oh, that is cool. It's funny because I'm going to introduce a super team. I hinted at it in the first issue. And in the second issue, I explicitly named the super team, and the leader of the team. And I think around issue 5, I'm going to tell a story with that team. And that's one of the things, because I make cards with it. I want to make like an ID card. Remember in the 80s, there was the Avengers card?
Yep.
ID card. Yeah. I remember photocopying that. And then I did something for the back. And then I got it laminated, put a picture of myself, Yeah, I love that. That is so cool. That's a great stretch goal.
Great fun.
I'm loving this art. I mean, dinosaurs, Kirby stuff. I mean, what else do you want? This is right up my alley, man.
Nice.
I'm kind of embarrassed that I didn't back it already.
Well, it's where there's so much out there, and there's so many campaigns that it's easy to fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
So, and that's part of the reason why I'm doing this kind of second tour, to kind of help spread the word and get the book up to 10K.
And you can't ask for a simpler campaign. I mean, look at this. Mm-hmm. 1 single issue or 8 issues, because that's a real concern, is like Heroic Tales 2. I got some swag, and I want people to get some of the back. Is it going to be too complicated? Like you know what I mean? Like,
I think my recommendation just to anybody is have like 3 or 4 very basic tiers that are easy to differentiate from each other depending on what you add on, and then have everything in the add-on section at checkout. And that way, by and large, when you're doing the fulfillment, there's going to be fewer variables, but the people that want to get everything can get everything.
Good idea. Thank you. And don't forget to drink your Ovaltine.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is so cool. Like I said, as soon as the camera's off, I'll back. I'm guilty of this, because I'll have somebody on my channel and we'll talk, and I'm like, yeah, I backed this, and then I look, I never backed it. Sometimes I back twice because I don't realize it's on Find My Comic and Indiegogo. I'm like, oh well, I guess I got 2 copies, And then some people I backed twice, and then yours I never backed at all, even though this is something that looks like right up my alley.
Well, you'll be you and your audience, you're in good shape, because it's in demand, ships the next day, and I'm hard at work at issue 2. I have right here a clipboard. This is my current draft of issue 2. You can see here, so it's not completed, but I am hard at work at issue 2, and it's about halfway done. Again, it's going to the story's going to pick up, continue the story, and I expect this campaign will be going live beginning of Q3 of next year. I got to finish it. I've got to get my perks and my stretch goals and my videos all put together. Looking forward to getting everybody the second issue of Jupiter. So this is a great opportunity to get introduced to the series and pick up issue 1.
How long do you think before you can do the campaign for issue 2?
I expect it will be June or July. I expect June or July I'll be able to kick it off and then fulfill. And the other thing is that I anticipate issue 3 will happen faster, because things have kind of calmed down at my day job. And
you get in a routine, you figured out all the variables. Oh man, I'm hoping issue 2 of my comic will be a lot smoother, man. I hope I don't have to get hernia surgery, break my neck, get sick, all these other obstacles that got into my way.
Well, between like the world building, the character designs, the color palettes, you get a lot of stuff figured out, and then you get in the groove. So I do think as you go along, each issue comes to fruition faster, because you've got everything becomes well oiled, and you're off to the races.
Now, what would you say? Is it easier now? Because you're a veteran of both now. You made a crowdfunded comic, but you also made a 90s indie comic. Mm-hmm. What one was easier? And
so I would say it's easier now on 2 levels. Creatively, it's easier now because we've got the Adobe Creative Suite. Back when I was doing Jupiter in the 90s, it was pen and paper and ink, and which I love. But it just takes longer because you've got to draw everything, and then you got to ink it. Working digitally, I've got a.
Oh, okay. Your other comic was pen and pencil, traditional.
Yep. So I've got this guy here with an Apple Pencil, and I've got Adobe Fresco, and it's just.
I'm allergic to Apple Frescos.
It's almost like drawing straight into ink. So it's faster, and then if you make a mistake, it's easier to erase and things like that. So I think physically creating the comic is easier now. And then before, obviously I was my own publisher, but I had to work with Diamond and the printer and stuff like that. It's frustrating because it was so hard to reach out and connect with people. So now we live in this wonderful age where you and we may never be in the same time zone, but we can have a conversation. We can have dozens of people watching us and so forth, and you can make the rounds. It is so much easier to connect with people. Now it takes energy, it takes time, and you have to enjoy doing it. But it's much easier than before, where it's like, you're in the catalog, you're sending out mailings, and you don't have a huge marketing budget. So I think I think we are in a golden age.
You had to make and produce a whole bunch of comics and then ship them to Diamond, right?
Well, actually, I used a publisher back in the 90s. I used a publisher in Texas, and they were like a couple miles from the Diamond distributor. So Diamond would pick up like every Monday. They would pick up, and they would just throw the stuff right on the truck. So I never paid for shipping to Diamond. But if you're traditional print, you either your printer either has to ship it to Diamond, or you've got to freight it to Diamond. But once it's at one of the Diamond distributors, then they will break up the pallets and send it out across the country. I think there's fewer Diamond distribution points now than there were back in the day. I heard that they've closed a couple of their depots, but you did have to physically pay for the freighting. So now
your publisher paid to publish the books, right? So
well, actually, I actually self-published. So back in the 90s, I self-published. So I had to fund the print bill and then make sure that it got into Diamond.
Risk, because now you pretty much know how much to publish.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I got all my comic and made a digital file, and then a month before the campaign ended, I got a number of how many to print, so it was less of a risk.
Yeah,
but.
Well, back in the 90s, it was still the direct market. So I would get an order. So Diamond would take all the orders from the retailers. They give me a total. They'd say, make sure it's available. It's available. I had a delivery window.
Okay.
But then I did do an overprint. But in terms of just the logistics of getting it printed and getting it shipped, it was probably more difficult than doing my own fulfillment. I actually enjoy fulfilling.
Me too. I you can't see right now. I'm not going to move the camera, but I got my scale over here. It looks like a little drug setup. I got my scale over here. I got my printer over here. And I just put fund my comic up here. Cut and paste. One mess up though. I sent Daniel De La Silva, my colorist. He lives in Brazil, and Mark Miller lives in the United Kingdom. So when I cut and paste. But I didn't clear, so my comics that I mailed to him is going to some Portuguese street that doesn't exist in United Kingdom. I hope they send it back to me. So it takes like 2 months to get to Brazil anyway, and then I got to add a trip to Europe and back. That was my only mess up.
Well, for international shipping, I use Critical Blast. But anything domestic, I ship it myself using USPS Ground Advantage.
Yeah, me too.
And that's why the shipping and handling on Jupiter is $5, because between the Gemini mailer, basically most addresses, if you're shipping one comic book in a Gemini mailer, it's gonna be like $5, and using Ground Advantage. And I was lucky because I was aware that Ground Advantage was on the way, it was coming. And so I timed Jupiter to fulfill in July of 2023 when Ground Advantage was available. And I do not know why. I've got no idea why the post office sat there for 20 years watching Amazon and watching eBay and didn't all they had was media mail and parcel post. I have no idea why it took them 20 years to say, hey, we should have an affordable, not overnight option that's not first class, but is cheap as media mail, but faster than media mail. Hence, they finally came around to Ground Advantage. And for those of you,
Advantage is new, huh?
Yep, 2023 it started. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, guys, I mean, you sat there and watched the eBay revolution, the Amazon revolution, the online e-commerce revolution, and you didn't find a niche. You didn't find a niche to connect businesses with customers. It took you 20 years to figure it out, but now we have Ground Advantage. So if you're doing your own comic book and you want to do your own fulfillment, check out Ground Advantage,
Yeah,
because
I messed up though, because I ordered boxes because I had a pint glass. I couldn't put this thing in my mailer. So I ordered, and the guy at the post office was like, dude, real cool guy, man. He's funny. He looks like the patriarch. So I gave him a comic. He's like, all right, yeah, cool. Look at this. I'm in a comic book, big muscular guy too. So he was like, listen, dude, because I was like, yeah, this sucks. I can only mail on Saturdays because I work. He goes, no, we'll come pick them up. I didn't know the post office will come to your house, and they'll send you boxes. But I learned the hard way that they sent me priority mailboxes.
Ouch.
And they don't take Ground Advantage. So everything got sent back to me.
Okay.
And don't tell the post office, but I just wrapped them in wrapping and used the same boxes, reprinted the stickers. I got caught for one. They charged me $26 for, but I can't complain. But now I know I have to get box number 7 if I order from the post office.
So those of you
don't know about until you do them.
Those of you that are watching, this is just proof that to be a comic book crowdfunder, you have to be a Renaissance man. You have to be able to do all kinds of different. You have to be a jack of all trades.
I didn't know pre-press was a step.
Yeah,
I thought, Daniel, my colors. Renzo sends me the pencils. I send it to Daniel. Daniel sends it back. I send it to the letterer. We're done. And then I just send the files to the printer. I didn't know that there was a whole nother step.
Yep.
And I don't know how to do that. I learned how to download files. Mike Gustovich did a cover for me. He just sent me the comic. I had to get it scanned and hired. I didn't know what this. I was like, oh man. Like I said, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yep.
Now I could teach a class in it.
It's an adventure. It's an adventure.
Renaissance man. Yeah. I was going to make a joke, but then I realized I didn't have a joke. But I wanted to make a joke. I can't even tell. Renaissance man. Yeah, right. I'm a guy who sits in my basement, reads comic books, and makes fun of myself. But I got to get going because at 8:30 I'm going to be on the Fourth Age, which is my friend RJ's channel, and we do comic book team up on Wednesday nights, 8:30 to 9:30, nice. And there's always a third person, and RJ doesn't tell me, so I'm always surprised to find out who will be. For all I know, it's you. You could be we could be talking, continue this conversation. So is there anything that you want to say that I didn't give you a chance because I pontificate too much?
All I gotta say is thank you for hanging out with me. Thanks for coming on the Friday nights. When your next book comes out, you got to come back on the Friday nights.
Absolutely.
Wonderful to hang out with you. I watch your show. You've done a fantastic job of bringing in indie creators and mainstream creators. You're doing a fantastic job. Just keep having fun. Keep up the good work. I look forward to coming back on when Jupiter issue 2 is on the campaign trail.
I'm going to back right when I'm done talking with RJ. You mentioned something before. I wanted to ask you, and I distracted myself. Do you enjoy going on and talking to people? I mean, you have your own channel. I guess you do. Yeah, because a lot of comic book people are shy, introverted, and they afterwards we go off like I can't stand doing it. Did I do well? And I'm like, I didn't realize that was a thing until maybe 6th or 7th person said that. I'm like, you were great.
Yeah, it takes. I mean, there's so many personality types. If you're a comic person, you're likely an introvert. So but I do enjoy doing this. And I do talk to my other people at the LCS. But I do have fun doing this, and I enjoy doing it. See, I'm good.
Well, that's what this is. This is the proxy for the comic book store that I don't have anymore. Just
exactly.
All right, but I'm gonna get going. My wife just gave me
nice
Thanksgiving dinner that I got 6 minutes to wolf down. So when you see me keel over on the Fourth Age, you know why. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Check out Jupiter. It looks awesome. Bye-bye.